Chapter 4. The Library of the Forgotten Stars. The blistering golden heat of the day had long since surrendered to the cool, silver light of the desert moon. Inside Alice's opulent bedchamber, the heavy wooden doors remained barred. A cluster of oil lamps flickered warmly, casting long dancing shadows against the painted limestone walls. Gathered around a low, intricately carved cedar table sat the most unusual council the ancient palace had ever seen. Alice sat cross-legged on a plush cushion, having thankfully managed to unfasten the heavy gold collar from her neck. Across from her sat Mal, tracing the edge of his silver and gold device with a calloused thumb. And seated at the centre of the table, illuminated by the lamplight, were Mango and Popit. They had been discussing their impossible situation for hours. "So, we have the keys," Mal murmured, his voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper as he nodded respectfully toward the cats. "And I have the compass." He tapped the blue crystal in the centre of his disc. "If there is a dormant tear in the veil somewhere within this city, my device will glow when we get near it, and with the localized magic your companions generate, they can force the doorway open." "He is quite intelligent for someone who digs in the dirt for a living," Popit observed telepathically, his yellow eyes fixed on the silver disc. "But a compass is useless if you do not know which way to walk. Where is this dark magician? Where did Severin take our kin?" Alice relayed the cat's question word for word. Mal sighed heavily, leaning back from the table and rubbing a hand over his tired, bearded face. "That is the problem, Alice. I don't know. Severin is a phantom. The people of Bast say he tore the sky open, swallowed the magic of the city, and vanished into a realm of pure shadow. The multiverse isn't a map you can just unfold. It's an endless shifting web. If we just open a portal and step through blindly, we could end up in a realm of acid rain or a world entirely submerged in water." "I strongly object to the water world," Mango projected immediately. He was currently lying on his side next to a silver platter, lazily batting a leftover grape back and forth between his paws. "Unless it is filled with those delicious fish we had at the banquet, in which case I am willing to compromise." Popit shot his brother a withering look. "Focus, Mango. We are planning a war, not a menu." Alice couldn't help but smile, though the heavy reality of the situation gnawed at her stomach. "So what do we do, Mal? We can't stay here pretending to be gods and servants forever, and we can't let Severin get away with what he's doing to the magic." Mal was quiet for a long moment, staring thoughtfully into the flickering flame of the nearest oil lamp. Slowly, a spark of realization lit up his weathered eyes. "We don't know where Severin's realm is," Mal said slowly, his accent thickening with sudden excitement. "But I know where we can find out." He leaned forward over the low cedar table, his gaze darting between Alice and the two cats. "In my first year of travelling, before I got trapped here, I stumbled into a nexus realm, a place that exists outside the normal flow of time, built by scholars thousands of years ago to map the veils." "What is it?" Alice asked, leaning in. "It's called the Library of the Forgotten Stars," Mal breathed, a look of profound reverence washing over his face. "It is a massive, endless repository of cosmic knowledge. There are tomes, star charts, and magical records of almost every realm in existence. If Severin is powerful enough to tear rifts between worlds, his name, and the dark realm he operates from, will be recorded in those archives." "A repository of knowledge," Popit mused, his tail twitching thoughtfully. "If we can find a description of his realm there, we can track him." "Exactly," Alice said, translating Popit's approval. "But Mal, if you haven't been there in over a year, do you know how to get back?" "I don't need to know the exact path," Mal grinned, tapping the blue crystal on his device. "The library is a nexus. It's highly magnetic to the veil. If we can find any dormant portal in this city, my device can tune its frequency to the library. but it takes a massive surge of pure magic to lock onto a realm that far away. He looked directly at Mango and Popit. I'll need everything you've got to pry the door open. Mango finally stopped playing with his grape and sat up, his golden eyes flashing in the lamplight. Tell the Scotsman we have the power of the briarwood running through our veins. He just needs to point the way. Alice smiled, a sudden rush of adrenaline cutting through her exhaustion. She looked at Mal. They're in. We're all in. When do we leave? Mal secured the silver disc back into his leather pouch, a determined fire in his eyes. First thing tomorrow morning, we'll tell the guards we require a private procession through the lower temple district to bless the ancient stones. Once we are out of sight, we find a portal and we leave Bast behind. The next morning broke with the blinding golden intensity that only the desert could muster. A sharp knock echoed against the heavy wooden doors of Alice's bedchamber. Before she could answer, the doors swung inward, and 2 stern-faced city guards escorted Mal into the room. He was dressed in his usual dusty linen tunic, his leather pouch secured tightly to his chest. The guards bowed deeply to the 2 black cats lounging on the bed, offered Alice a dismissive nod, and retreated, pulling the heavy doors firmly shut behind them. Well, Mal said quietly, stepping further into the room and glancing around to ensure they were truly alone. Are we all ready? Alice stood by the ornate cedar table, quickly stuffing pieces of roasted meat, a few flatbreads, and a skin of fresh water into a rough linen backpack she had fashioned from a spare tunic. She hoisted the pack over one shoulder, adjusting her white dress. At the sound of Mal's voice, Mango and Popit hopped gracefully down from the bed and moved to sit on either side of her, their golden eyes bright and alert. Yes, Alice said, reaching down to give Mango a quick scratch behind the ears. They're ready. Mal offered a rare, genuine smile, his weathered face crinkling at the corners of his eyes. With the help of your portal weavers, we stand a very good chance of leaving here today. I must admit, I thought I might never get the chance. Alice paused, her hand hovering over Mango's head. She blinked at Mal, completely confused. Portal weavers? Yes, Mal said, nodding toward the cats. Didn't you know? That's what they're called. In almost every ancient text I've translated across a dozen realms, magical felines with the ability to manipulate the fabric of the veil are recorded as portal weavers. Alice slowly looked down at the 2 cats sitting by her feet. No, they never mentioned it. Well, it never came up, Popit projected coolly into her mind, not breaking eye contact with the Scotsman. You never asked for our formal species designation. You usually just call us my little cheese monsters or fluffy menaces. I quite like fluffy menace, Mango chimed in cheerfully, wrapping his tail around Alice's ankle. But portal weaver does have a rather distinguished ring to it. Remind me to demand more salmon when we return to the cottage. As a portal weaver, I shouldn't have to settle for cold breakfast sausages. Alice let out a breath of exasperated laughter, shaking her head. Right, okay, you 2 are unbelievable. She looked back up at Mal, adjusting her linen pack. All right, Mal, lead the way. The procession is waiting downstairs, Mal said, his voice dropping to a serious whisper as he placed a hand over his leather pouch. The plan is simple. We march out to the ruins at the edge of the city. Once we are away from the crowds, I'll pull out the device. The moment it glows, the portal weavers need to hit the distortion with everything they have. We will only have seconds before the guards realize we are escaping. The procession through the city of Bast was agonizingly slow. Alice walked at the center of the formation, sweating under the climbing sun, with her makeshift linen backpack slung over one shoulder. Flanking her were 4 elite guards, their bronze spears glinting fiercely in the light. Ahead of them, Mango and Popit trotted with absolute unhurried majesty, seemingly oblivious to the dust and heat. The local citizens lined the streets, dropping to their knees and whispering prayers as the black cats passed. Mal trailed respectfully a few paces behind Alice, playing the part of the humble, silent scholar perfectly. "My paws are getting entirely too hot," Mango complained in Alice's mind as they finally reached the edge of the city. "The stone here is baking. Tell the Scotsman to hurry up." "Patience, brother," Popit chided, though his tail was flicking with quiet tension. "The guards are watching closely." Before them lay the sprawling, half-buried ruins of the old kingdom. Massive limestone pillars and the crumbling faces of ancient statues jutted out from the encroaching desert dunes. It was quiet here, removed from the bustling city, the only sound the dry wind whispering across the sand. Alice turned to the captain of the guard. Drawing on her best, most exaggerated mime skills, she pointed to the cats, then to a massive shadowy temple entrance half swallowed by a dune. She pressed her palms together and bowed her head. "Divine ones, pray now, private. You, stay here." The captain frowned, his dark eyes darting suspiciously from Alice to Mal. For a tense second, his hand tightened on the shaft of his spear. But when Popit turned and offered the man a slow, imperious, golden-eyed stare, the captain quickly bowed his head and signalled his men to halt. Alice and Mal hurried after the cats, slipping into the cool, deep shadows of the ruined temple. Massive columns, thick as ancient oaks, obscured them from the guards' line of sight. "All right," Mal whispered, his hands trembling slightly as he pulled the leather pouch from his tunic. He pulled out the silver and gold disc, immediately holding it up to his right eye. He scanned the ruins, turning slowly in a circle. For a breathless moment nothing happened. Then he stopped. He was facing a solid wall of ancient sandstone carved with faded hieroglyphs. The flawless blue crystal in the centre of the disc suddenly flared to life, pulsing with a brilliant rhythmic azure light. "There," Mal breathed, pointing at the empty air in front of the wall. "It's dormant, but it's there. The frequency is faint." He stepped forward, holding the glowing disc out like a lantern. "I'm locking on to the nexus. Portal weavers, if you please, give it everything you have." Mango and Popit didn't hesitate. They bounded forward, stopping directly in front of the blank sandstone wall. Instantly, the beautiful, intricate blue geometric lines flared across their sleek black coats, illuminating the shadowy temple like living constellations. The air between the cats began to warp and ripple, catching the blue light of Mal's device. But it was fighting them. The portal shuddered, the air hissing like a lit fuse. Without the ambient magic of the stolen bast cats to support them, prying the veil open was requiring massive effort. Popit let out a low, straining yowl, his glowing runes burning almost blindingly bright. "Push, Mango!" Popit's voice echoed sharply in Alice's mind. With a deafening crack that sounded like lightning striking stone, the portal tore open. A swirling vortex of cool, starlit energy blossomed in the centre of the hot, dusty temple. Outside, a voice shouted. Alice spun around. The sound of the portal tearing open had echoed right out to the street. The captain of the guard rounded the massive columns, his eyes going wide as he saw the swirling blue vortex, the glowing cats, and the escaping scholar. "Stop them!" the captain roared in his native tongue, raising his spear. He signalled his men, who charged into the ruins, their sandals slapping heavily against the stone. "Go!" Mal shouted. He grabbed Alice by the arm and shoved her toward the rippling light. "Through the veil!" Alice dug her heels into the dust, her eyes wide as she stared at the unstable, hissing portal. "Are you sure you got the right place?" Mal cast a frantic look back at the charging guards. "Yes, at least I'm pretty sure. We have no time, Alice. Go!" Mal shoved past her and dove through the portal first, vanishing into the blue energy. Alice scrambled forward, but her heavy linen pack caught on a jagged piece of the ruined pillar. She yanked it free, her heart hammering against her ribs as the guards closed the distance. The captain hurled his spear. Alice threw herself forward. The bronze spearhead sparked violently against the sandstone wall, missing her shoulder by mere inches, showering her with chips of stone just as she tumbled headfirst into the cool, rushing water sensation of the portal. She landed hard on a smooth, polished wooden floor, sliding a few feet before catching her breath. A split second later, Mango and Popit leapt gracefully out of the rippling air, their geometric lines flashing one final brilliant time. Behind them, the sounds of the charging guards and the blistering heat of the desert were instantly severed. The portal snapped shut with a sharp pop, leaving nothing behind but empty air. Alice lay on the floor, panting heavily, her heart threatening to beat right out of her chest. "Well," Mango's voice echoed calmly in her mind, accompanied by the sound of him casually grooming his front paw. That was invigorating, though I must say the accommodations here are looking vastly different from the palace. Alice pushed herself up onto her hands and knees. The hot, dusty air of Bast was entirely gone, replaced by the scent of old parchment, dry ink, and beeswax candles. She looked up. Mal was standing a few feet away, brushing himself off and grinning from ear to ear. They were standing in a room so massive it defied comprehension. Towering, impossible shelves carved from dark, polished wood stretched upward until they vanished into a ceiling that looked exactly like the midnight sky, glittering with real swirling galaxies. Millions of books, scrolls, and glowing crystal spheres lined the shelves, bathed in a soft, ambient golden light. Miles of intricately carved staircases stretched as far and high as they could see, connecting endless balconies of knowledge. "Alice, portal weavers," Mal said, his voice echoing softly in the vast, quiet expanse. "Welcome to the Library of the Forgotten Stars."